Nice to meet everyone. Let us begin. So, what I have in mind for this session is I'll tell you about who I am, and by that I mean what I do, why we are here. I'll also tell you about why we are here in the supergroup, why exactly I've started it, what I want to achieve with it exactly. Then I'll also tell you about what you can expect from it and how best to leverage it. Now that we have the benefit of hindsight, and last year we had plenty of experiences, there are some useful inputs which I'll be able to share with you, which I'll be happy to do that. Then I'd like to get to know about you, but particularly about your biggest problems with respect to the UPSC, which may go beyond just the subjects. For instance, yesterday I was speaking with a member of this group who's been an old student. She was really upset, and the reason that she was upset is because she was having relationship trouble, and she was really quite devastated, and not at all in the frame of mind to be able to prepare. I did what I could, and the reason I want to know this stuff and about your emotional makeup is also because I am um, a psychologist, and it tells me a lot about what I'm dealing with, and it often also gives me hints which I cannot get just by asking you about your essay or ethics preparation. You know what I mean? If you're okay with that, I'll begin. You all know my name. I am well. I have been a number of things in my life, and I initially started off as being nothing but a fat kid. I was a fat kid, and I had these major issues with self worth, and I also had issues with attention deficit. I could never really focus at all. Anyway, long story short, fast forward to school and college, and so I was a nobody, right? And all throughout this period, I used to be a student in my mother's school. My mother used to teach in their school, and she was the vice principal there, and she was this very feared and very, well-respected authority figure in that school. And I was an embarrassment to her because I simply was not performing academically, and so that was an issue. And when that issue, cropped up and became apparent after I grew up and I was in 10th standard, so we figured that we probably cannot coexist in the same place. So she had me put in another school, which was really good for me and for her. And I did what I did in that school, and I did not find myself at all interested in studies. I was not interested in studies. I did not like what was going on there. I hated it, and it made absolutely no sense to me. And it was for me a whole bunch of nonsense that was being taught. The thing which I resented, and this speaks to you also, relevant for UPSC, they were shoving it down my throat. They were forcing it down my throat. I had to do these various things which I didn't want to do. Anyway, fast forward, I discovered bodybuilding. I discovered powerlifting. I did well in that. I had a nice career going. I was selected in the Indian team. I won a bunch of medals for India. I won the Asian Powerlifting Championship. I won the Mr. Delhi Championship also in bodybuilding. And that career was going well. But life had other plans entirely. And I had this injury. So there was this rugby match. And in that rugby match, there was a fight. In rugby, it's a contact sport, and injuries are quite common. The issue is that in India, if you play a game like rugby, the infrastructure just isn't there. जिस level का होना चाहिए. So in any case, I got caught in that scuffle, and that scuffle was particularly violent. Well, although I was not a violent individual, but I was interested in the game. There are people who were violent. So what ended up happening was basically I was down on the floor, and a few people kicked me on my face repeatedly. And they kicked me because they are powerful people, rugby players, and in rugby you have aluminium studs. You're kicking on the face constantly, which completely shattered my cheekbone. I started to bleed on the ground itself, and then everybody saw the blood, and everybody was horrified. And the fight just died right there, as soon as the people saw the blood. And then everybody was petrified, and I was quickly rushed to the hospital. When I reached the hospital, the doctor was also horrified. What the hell have you been doing? How is it? What is this? How did you get this? He thought I was in a car crash. It was that bad, bleeding all over. And so he then took me to the operation theater. He spent a long time trying to patch me up, And he basically figured that the injury is internal. That it isn't a cut on my face. My cheekbone inside is shattered, this one. And even to this day, you'll notice that there's a squint in my eye. That's because I have stitches all the way here. And so he patched it up and he said that I'm patching it up, but you cannot get up from your supine position. You have to be lying down. आपको लेटे रहना है, आप उठ नहीं सकते हो 3 हफ्ते तक, because if you get up, then gravity will force the wound down and you start to bleed again, and I can't patch it up again because your wound is inside. So he fixed up a huge tape inside my nose, and he literally had a thread hanging out. And so he would, after every few days, pull it out and then repatch it. So this was the state of affairs. Now, in the state of affairs, I had to ask myself a few difficult questions. The first difficult question: what the hell am I going to do with my life? The only thing I'd ever known that I was good at was athletics, and never one for physics or anything whatsoever at all. And so at that time, I had done enough sports and athletics that I had this very hardcore mentality of that there is nothing I can't do by that time. So I jumped into the UPSC without knowing anything about it. मुझे ये भी नहीं पता था कि IAS, IPS, IRS में क्या difference होता है. Honestly, I had no clue. I had no mentor. There was nobody telling me क्या है क्या नहीं है. I jumped in. I picked up the phone that day and I called this random institute, Vajiram. Vajiram is somebody XYZ said that this is where it's happening. You come here. I went there. As luck would have it, admissions were going on. There was a huge line outside Vajiram. And I started to ask people, why are you standing? Somebody said optional subject. I said, what is an optional subject? An optional subject लेना होता है. I said, अच्छा, आपने क्या लिया है? Again, this is basically just a literate person out of school with no academic achievement, and he's telling me about sociology and things which I just beyond my scope. I called home and I said that I need some money to enroll in this. And somebody asked, which optional do you want? I don't know. What's a good one? The other person said, psychology is good. I said, fine, I'll take that. And that's how I started with psychology. And I joined the classes. And for the first year, for the first 6 months, I got nothing. It was horrifying. It was terrible. It was a bad experience. I felt like an idiot. जो भी थोड़ी बहुत मेरी self-worth थी, that was crushed and completely wiped out because I found myself in that coaching institute surround. यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा वो होता है, very competitive, and I felt very intimidated and deflated. But something happened in that journey. Something happened one day. Something weird happened. I remember, although again my memory is not exactly as pristine, it could be wrong. I think I was reading something in psychology about psychology in a textbook. All of a sudden, it started to make sense. Nothing had made sense ever. Nothing, no amount of text had ever made sense to me on a textbook. All of a sudden, it started to make sense, and it was like something is unlocked. And I started to realize that this stuff is wonderful. This is not being shoved down my throat. और उसमें UPSC में एक autonomy थी, और autonomy I really liked, and I liked the subject. Again, fast forward, I started to love the subject itself. The reason I cleared the UPSC exam is because I got interested in the subject itself. I really, again, honestly telling you, the UPSC exam became secondary. I wanted to spend time with the books. I was enjoying it, and I felt like I have a lot of years of catching up to do, and a lot of compensation is to do. And so I started to like it, kept it, doing it. First attempt, got through, gave the interview. Interview was horrible. It was a horrible experience. I couldn't say anything in the interview. It was Lieutenant Colonel Nirbhay Sharma. The first thing he asked me is, why don't you go become a model? He asked me that question as soon as I walked in, and I was not prepared for that question, and I did not say a thing. I was completely froze. And again, not kidding, I froze. And I could say nothing, and I made an absolute fool of myself. Walked out of that interview, they gave me 133 out of 300. I think that is also they were being very kind to me. I don't think I deserved even that. Second attempt, much better, IRS, and then the third attempt again IRS. So that is the story. Did that for 7, 8, 10 years. 2 years ago, realized this is not fun. I want something more. And the thing that I wanted more was this intellectual stimulation, which I already found, what I was very passionate about and loved it. So during that time, I was reading. With the 18 years, I was actually vigorously educating myself, reading. I was reading without any pattern. I was reading what I felt curious about. I read physics where I could. I read about math, which I had hated so far. I read about sociology, anthropology, anything I could get my hands on. Anything which I found to be valuable, I consumed. And I did this for about 7-8 years. When it got to a point where I started my MA in clinical psychology, I recently completed that. When COVID hit a couple of years ago, I decided that I need to now start putting this out there and I need to connect with people. I have now a background in psychology. I have all this information. There is no group of people that I can impact more than UPSC aspirants. Started to do that, wrote my book, the cheat book of essay and answer writing. Again, fast forward, did a lot of work, created a lot of tools, expended a lot of energy. Then it came to a point where I realized that you cannot do both. Yeah, either you do this job or you do this. You can't do both if you want to do it well. And I wanted to do it well. Recently, I resigned. I don't know how many of you guys know. I recently resigned, just very recently. And now I've joined Testbook, which is a tech company. And this tech company is interesting because now I know all the founders. I know the people who are driving it. And I have discovered that this set of people, I mean, they're very smart, first of all. They're all from IIT. And they want to become the best. So they have a lot to prove. That's one. Two, because this is a tech company, they have all these resources. Three, they have a lot of respect for me. So when I say something, they listen and they give me the support which I require. That is my story. That is, so all this logistical tech support, जो हमको जब चाहिए होगा. Going forward, we may be able to get them to give us lectures. I will bargain. हो सकता है कि optional subject के पूरे courses वो हमको दे पाएं free of charge. हो सकता है हमारे लिए आंसर राइटिंग कर पाएं, हो सकता है हमको अपना प्लेटफॉर्म दे दें, हो सकता है कि क्या चाहिए होगा हमको. बेसिकली whatever is required, I will keep trying to bargain and getting in this initiative. That's Testbook. That's my story. And just to finish it off, why do I do this? Why this Supergroup? For exactly 3 practical reasons. One, I need intellectual stimulation. मुझे मजा यही नहीं आता है. I get bored if I talk to people who are not interesting. Two, one, the only way I can get intellectual stimulation is by people who are at a certain level. I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but it's the truth. People at a certain level I can engage with. I can talk about this stuff. I can talk about George Orwell. I can talk about Nietzsche. I can talk about whatever is required, and that's exactly the level which the UPSC also wants at a certain point. I get that with advanced aspirants. I like that. I look forward to it. I enjoyed it last year. I'm going to enjoy it this year. Two, I'm a very competitive guy. I want to be the best. I was able to clear the exam. Now the challenge that I've undertaken is I want to make sure that I'm able to reproduce this and get other people also to clear it. Although that is difficult, it's a tall order. A lot of effort is involved. It's mostly going to come from the people themselves, but I've basically taken it as a thing. And I'm going to do it. And I have basically decided that I'm going to do it. I will do it. The third thing is that it will enhance my career. Now that I've resigned, this is my career. This is what I do now. I am a psychologist and a mentor and an athlete combined into one. That's what I am now. I have my background in psychology. I did the UPSC. I love this intellectual stuff. And I've been an athlete. I want to bring all this together and I want to create something that has never been created before. That is my true motivation. That's what I'm doing. That's what I am. And now over to you. Please tell me about yourself. Feel free to be open about it. But also, I should introduce you to this room, by the way. This is the space room. You're all welcome to the space room. I call it the space room, not because it's spacious. It's not, but because it is a space where you can think freely. It is a space where this is a mental space. Let's call it that. When you come into this room, you can let your mind go and you can think freely and you can engage and you will not be judged ever. This is also a room where I sometimes administer therapy sessions if needed. I never charge for them. But so this is a psychologist's office. It is also my study. You're all very welcome here, and hopefully one day we'll sit and have a chat here. So that is what's going on. And now please feel free to tell me anything that you want to. It's in my house. I live in Delhi, Noida. And feel free to tell me anything that you want to about yourself. Share anything you want to, and we'll take the conversation further.
If somebody asks me on why as a person you have to become an IAS officer, or not just an IAS officer, but like a civil servant, matlab, I would want to, if there is any job that I would want to resonate with down the line 10 years of my life, I would want it to be a civil servant. Like the personality that is associated with a civil servant, the kind of discipline, the kind of work ethic, the kind of commitment to job, and the kind of dedication to take up challenges on an everyday basis is what I would want to develop and identify myself with. So, like, that is my biggest motivation to come into this exam and be it.
That's a very noble intention. Also, quite an interesting path. You're right. And it is offbeat, and for some reason, for some strange reason, we do associate the social sciences with being academically less less optimal than others, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And I think it's a load of nonsense. If anything, I think too much technical training and left brain thinking makes you unidimensional, and that's not what really helps you in life, except that make you money. So it's a very good way to think about it. But I'm just concerned. I don't know whether this is premature about the fact that I found myself disillusioned, honestly, from the system, and so my real understanding as of now, at this point in time, although it may change in the future, is that the impact is being driven by entrepreneurs. In fact, I feel much more than civil servants. Civil servants will facilitate, but then there's this huge other dimension of entitlement and problems that come along with it. And I mean, it is crazy. When you get there, you'll realize. But again, it is the intention that matters. And and with this mindset, if you were to be given the opportunity, I think you will do much, much better than 99% of the people who might not have this kind of thinking. And as far as the UPSC exam is concerned, I'll help you in any way I can. I personally would like to see you in services. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing. I already know your language skills are impeccable. We'll see how you write. And we'll work on the areas which we have to work on. So, but yeah, it's good.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, it's a good chat. Thank you.
I've been part of Sir's group from last year, and something which I liked the most was I couldn't clear mains last time, and while most institutes were running behind people who could clear mains, Sir was one of the very rare people who immediately reached out to the ones who did not clear, because those who didn't clear, we feel left out, or we feel that failure. And at that time when Sir reached out to all of us, it touched me a lot. And even post, I think a month after that also, I connected with Sir on how to proceed. Sir gave a online meet like this, he conducted and he guided us all. But after that also, whenever I had queries, Sir was he responded immediately. And that was something which I really appreciated about him. And this was when he was in the service also. At that time, he was in the service. So thank you so much, sir, for that. And
it's a pleasure. The moral obligation if I call myself a psychologist, then I cannot not respond to emotional trauma. It is what I am supposed to do. As I don't know, as an ethical human being, and again, somebody who calls himself a psychologist, if he doesn't speak up at the time when people actually are suffering, then what's the point? But yes, please carry on.
But I'm glad that I have this community with me and your support, sir. I'm very thankful for that. I've been connected with you since last year. I look forward to learn with you all.
Yeah. Yes, I am also very happy that this is coming together. And but thank me when I've done something constructive. So far, we're just getting started, and the ultimate gratitude will be when you clear the exam. That's what I want.
Thank you, sir.
We'll definitely get there.
मैं अपनी आज की डेट में if someone asks what is your motivation, I would say that it is my satisfaction. I got satisfaction if I do something and something to make happy others. Not in terms of कि मैं उनके लिए कर रही हूँ, उससे ज़्यादा कि खुद के लिए कर रही हूँ. तो वो मैंने स्कूल टाइम से ही खुद में नोटिस किया था और उसी से मैं डिसाइड कर लिया था कि मुझे अल्टीमेटली आना इसी फील्ड में है. For ethics and essay especially, like I'm totally relying on sir's suggestion because मैंने सर के लेक्चर्स देखे हैं, वो बुक भी पढ़ी है, नोट्स भी मेरे पास प्रॉपर हैं, पीवाईक्यूज भी देखे हैं. बट वो कहते हैं कि वो एक बेसिक प्रिपरेशन है. इसके ऊपर जो एडवांस लेवल पे लेके जाने की जो है, वो मुझे लगता है कि वो सर के गाइडेंस के बिना पॉसिबल नहीं है. So I'm greatly relying on your guidance for these two subjects especially.
Yes, I'll be happy to extend it this time in a different format, a much better format than I've ever done. For essays, especially what you were saying about spirituality, etc., I will be sharing content. I just started to share it already. Yesterday was one example when I shared that essay. I'll be sharing excellent pieces of content which will inform not only your language but the content of the type of thing that you may expect in an essay from the UPSC. This discussion about Porus knows about it, and some other people may also know. This whole debate about spirituality versus science, I knew it is an ancient debate. If you start to prepare for the essay, etc., you cannot not talk about this stuff. This stuff came last time. The essay they asked is, history is a series of victories of the scientific man over the romantic man, and it's literally an ancient debate. If you Google most popular essay topics, this one will appear in top 10. So we'll talk about essay in detail and ethics as much as I possibly can. Ethics has a lot of dense content actually now. It is its own discipline. It cannot be taken lightly, and it's a problem for most people. And it is hard. It is hard. The subject is now hard, and it is hard to teach, and it is hard to write well about also. People with a liberal arts, social science background have an advantage, but not too much of an advantage. Ethics, whatever UPSC is asking now, आज की date में, they are drawing from philosophy, psychology, law, and they're expecting a particular social science vocabulary to be used proper. You can't just get by using generic language or common sense colloquial language. It just doesn't cut it. They will not give you marks for that. They are expecting a high level of proficiency in everything, regardless of their syllabus saying that expertise is not required. That I think is not true. Absolutely, expertise is required, and that too across domains, at least to a certain degree. We will prepare accordingly. Now that I have the support of textbook, in last year Supergroup I was all by myself. Now I have help, and I can draw upon this help to see what I can do. So one thing I'm already considering is how I can suggest that everyone organize themselves according to optional subjects. My idea is we should have study groups for optional subjects. I think last year a few people started to self-organize accordingly to this strategy. They were discussing and critiquing each other's answers constantly. They were sharing notes, and they were being very critical, and they were having healthy discussions about this stuff. But more importantly, they were pushing each other to write. They were writing. That is, I think, very important. And I think I'll try to create a structure जिसके आसपास ये सब हो सके on a regular basis. एक self-sustaining strand वहाँ चल जाएगा. I can get a few people, especially from history and geography, to deliver the content. बता देंगे, सिखा देंगे, बोल देंगे. But वो तो फिर हर जगह है. I don't think this is what you need right now.
Every day morning 7 o'clock I was going to a place giving tests. So if there is an external locus where I can attach my discipline to, I think the day gets structured in a little different way.
So right now my idea for that is some sort of a attendance sheet, so to speak, where I ask people to enlist the 3 tasks that they are going to do, which they say that they will do, to take that commitment and to drive that accountability. That is one idea. Second idea is at the end of each day or at the end of each week, we actually be asked a few questions about by somebody. Maybe that person is for us, I don't know. Somebody, have you done what you said you would do? And to actually be constantly, for want of a better word, I need a drill sergeant. I need a drill sergeant here. Somebody, a PT teacher, I want a PT teacher, personal coach type role. जितना मैं कर सकूंगा मैं करूंगा, but I don't think it's going to be possible for me to administer all of these simultaneously. But somebody who is actually doing the good cop bad cop thing. I'm the good cop, that person has to be the bad cop. And I don't know to what extent people will tolerate this, but I am going to experiment with it this time. Let us see how it works.
So I want sir to help me really, because I think essay and ethics can make you or break you this time, because in that the score difference is from 80 to 140. So अगर इन दोनों subjects में अगर हमको edge मिल जाएगा, तो optional और GS को मिला के we can tackle this, and I think we can make to the list.
Does anyone know what is the best tentative date for means? Starting of means, roughly.
Yes sir.
जो means की tentative date है, when is it?
15th September.
Is this confirmed?
Yes.
Yes sir.
How many days does that give us?
85 to 90 sir. 5 to 90. Yes.
Let us assume 80. Let us assume 80. Let us
85 to 90 sir. 85.
87.
Let us assume 80 and keep that margin as the 7 days that you don't do literally anything, you fall sick or something. And let us deduct 20% of that for another miscellaneous things or revision. So 80 or 20% out there, 16. That leaves us with what? 64?
Yes.
And how many things do you have to deal with? Essay, ethics, optional. We should consider optional as 2 instead of 1. So that's 4 things you have to deal with. GS should be counted as another 3 things to deal with. Just blocking, putting them into chunks. So, कितने हो गए? 7. 7 what is 64 divided by 7?
9 point.
Just above 9.
Around 9.
Just above.
9.
That's the realistic amount of days you have for each of these. And realistic.
Compulsory language. Yes.
I'm assuming that you will figure it out in the gaps of this. Literally with 8 or 9 days per thing, any of these things that I'm calling things, is a whole world of content to be consumed.
Yes.
This is realistically all you have, right? That is the fact of the matter. This is all you have. You have 9 days for essay. That includes improving your language and getting it to a level which is very high. You have no more than 10 days for ethics, which is hard and requires a substantial amount of writing. You have no more than 20 days for your optional, which you are reading and writing both. So you cannot be going on a long tangent of 15 to 30 days just focusing on that. There is no time for it. So what Rishar is saying, is important and instructive and actually true. You don't exactly know whether you should be doing executive planning. What I did was planning. 80, 64, this is planning. Or you should be focusing on the content or that chapter on climate change, or writing that essay, thinking about spirituality, and then being able to write about it. Here is the problem with that. Your brain cannot do both things at the same time. The problem with something called deep focus. If you want to understand, so suppose I have a book I've been reading these days, the Math of Life and Death. Math of Life and Death by Kit Yates. Nice book. Tells you a lot about statistics and how math is used in life, how math is used in medical science, how it can tell us what is right, what is wrong, what to be believed, what is not to be believed. इसको पढ़ने के लिए deep focus चाहिए. My phone cannot be around me in my vicinity if I want to read it. Otherwise, I cannot finish a chapter. Deep focus is hard to achieve. It takes an amount of effort, but there are techniques of attaining deep focus which are highly, highly effective. It is a muscle which has to be trained. The best method that has ever been designed to train this muscle of attention is meditation, and that too, there are all sorts of meditations. There is one type of meditation which is object centered. So instead of observing the whole thing that is happening in your consciousness, you direct attention and you channelize into one thing, one object. This is not the only meditation there is. There are multiple methods, multiple ways. You may focus on the whole body. You may focus on whatever is in your consciousness. You may focus on a mantra, whatever. Object oriented. So here is what they do, and this is again something which Prince will enjoy, something to do with spirituality. Goal of spirituality is to be able to focus on what it is that you are. मतलब क्या है वो है क्या ये? Apart from this body, what is it inside? That fundamental question. You cannot deal with that fundamental question unless you have a laser focused attention. You cannot have a laser focused attention because your mind is full of things. If you are investigating who you are, then at the same time you cannot think about planning, you cannot think about your kids, you cannot think about money. These are thoughts which will disturb. You have to cut through, go straight to the source, and for that you need laser focused attention. तो वो एक अलग लेवल की ट्रेनिंग करते हैं वो लोग इस चीज के लिए. It's completely different level of attention training that they do that we will use to build this muscle. But it is a muscle. It has to be trained consistently in order to be refined. But you will start to see results within a week. Attention span will increase, distractibility will decrease, mental acuity, retention will increase. It will be a fair amount of effort. So the techniques I learned in detail because I went to these meditation retreats and I spent a lot of time learning this stuff. I had a phase of 2 years where I did nothing but this mostly. Anyway, those things I will teach as far as I can. So what I'm saying is that we'll have to do particular training sessions for this stuff. You can think about them as going to the gym, preparing, and if you want to go and compete in say a tournament, weightlifting tournament, or I don't know why you would want to do that, but any tournament. So there is something called conditioning for every sport. हर sport की conditioning होती है. It is not the main activity. It is everything that prepares you for that main activity. जो कि करी जाती है training पे, field पे, gym में, जहाँ पर भी. That conditioning for this activity which you are doing for the study itself is this attention training. The attention training will not help you control stress. It is not designed for well-being. It is designed for focus. So you are capable of focus, otherwise you would not have been here. But the focus is not really under control. It may come, it comes and goes. And sometimes you get it, it's great. Other times you don't get it and you can't conjure it up. This will push the control in your hands a little more, not completely. Even despite this, there will be times when nahi hoga, but the probability of a very successful session will be very high. That much I can. Yeah, Princey.
Sir, I just wanted to ask, like, when we will be having this session, because attention and concentration is one of my biggest weakness, I would say. Like, I can be consistent, but concentration is the major issue.
Yes, you will have some sort of recorded content which you can use as a form of guided meditation.
Yes, sir, and I want to thank you for that, because just after prelims, before prelims, you did one meditation session, and I think that was the major reason why I'm sitting here, because just before the exam, I just did those meditation for half an hour before going into the exam hall. During exam, I was quiet and able to deliver whatever I can.
That practice would have brought your heart rate and breath under control, and also it would have reduced stress and would have kept you stable. Very essential. We will do more of that when the exam comes, when you will actually get jitters. बहुत ज़्यादा nervousness, anxiety हो जाती है उस time पे, pains के time पे. People break down. You will hear people crying. And I'm not kidding. That will happen. It may happen to everyone, but it doesn't matter. We'll use that then. But this is a different category of training which I have not done before. This is you focusing on nothing but one object and training your mind constantly with somebody nudging you to do that. It's going to be, so it's an experience. There's no point describing it. Experience ही है वो. Experience करके ही feel होगा कि क्या है. Do that experience. धीरे धीरे it will start to translate and go into the. After that, you will not be able to tolerate distractions. आपको खुद लगाएगी. Phone से, इधर-उधर के शोर से. You will want to maintain that state. But again, expectation management is important. For normal human beings, more than 4 to 6 hours of deep focus is not possible every day. That is realistic. I'm telling you that. Deep focus is achieved when you have no sense of self, absorbed in some sort of a lucid dream, where you are reading the text. Just इतना executive control है कि हमको पता है कि आगे आगे बढ़ना है. इतना ही है. और जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं वो visual में convert हो रहा है और समझ में आ रहा है. This is deep focus. Another method of deep focus, another experience of deep focus will be, suppose you have read something before and you're reading it again, say Bipin Chandra. Without getting distracted by thoughts कि ये पढ़ा था नहीं पढ़ा था आता है नहीं आता है, you are going through it mechanically like a program, like algorithm. ये हो गया. This I know. Okay, this I don't know. Wait. Let me figure it out. You stop it. Have the discipline to stop it. Figure out what you don't know. Come back and then start. That also requires a lot of mental discipline. But that type of cognition you require in revision. So we'll train these states of mind. We'll also explore some spirituality along the way. By default, we will.
Aishwarya, would you like to say something?
I came to know Ravi sir while I was searching for my optional psychology. It was super bad, and I could proceed. I'm very much thankful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Yes, Karan.
This is going to be my last attempt. This is my third mains. While working, I gave my first, second, and third attempt, and I left my job in 2019. And then I couldn't clear prelims for the next 2 attempts, 20 and 21. After that, it took toll on my mental health. So I thought I should take a break from everything. Took time to think about my well-being. And this year again, I gave my prelims. So yeah, hoping for the best this time in the mains.
Definitely, there will be something exciting for you. We will talk about life after UPSC, after we're done with the mains. But right now we'll take the onus. And so one thing I would like to say here, which may or may not make sense to you, because here all of us are practical people, overly practical I might say. There is some merit in affirmations and visualizations. This power of the subconscious mind stuff is not entirely pseudoscientific nonsense. It has actual merit. I'm not saying that in that pop science, yoga pant wearing, liberal, pseudoscientific fashion is true. It is not true. The universe does not conspire to give you what you want. The universe literally does not care about you at all. The power of the subconscious mind, etc., works in very different psychological mechanisms, through mechanisms. They can be harnessed. They should be put to use. Even if they don't lead to the result, they will lead to a journey which is much better to experience. Although they will actually increase the probability of success. That too I can tell you. So I think 2 things that we need to visualize. One thing is to visualize the process. Now I've already told you have 9 days for one of these things. The challenge is this: can you keep mindful and can you keep stable and mentally calm for 9 whole days? Not be driven insane by everything that has to be done, that is not yet done, and focus only on that. And have the constant belief and the state of mind, absolute calmness that I know that I have to do everything else, but this is what I need to do now, so I'll do that and worry about things later. Even though the exam is approaching close, somebody else, you will open the Supergroup, you'll see, पता नहीं क्या क्या हो रहा है. कोई ऐसे कर रहा है, कोई ऐसे कर रहा है. I don't know what I am doing. There's something else which I am doing. I'm on a tangent and I am missing out, etc. It will require mental discipline. And this, I'm not just talking about discipline. I suppose I'm talking about something called equanimity. Equanimity is a state of mind. It is a state where you are not easily perturbed. I am not equanimous, admittedly. As of now, because I'm not training, I'm not doing meditation on a regular basis, I am not equanimous. अगर कहीं से कुछ हो जाता है, तो my mental peace is disturbed for a few hours. It takes time for me to, I need to either sleep or I need to basically somehow reboot the system to get normal. I do not have right now the mental discipline to remain equanimous. Equanimity के लिए training करनी पड़ती है mind की, and so that too something we'll focus on. So the next, I think the one important topic of conversation is how can I help you with essays apart from evaluating them? I will evaluate them. Do you want me to conduct lectures and classes for that?
As for now, like I have been doing, like I had completed your lectures. So for me, lectures are not needed that much. Your guidance, some sort of like what I have written wrong, what I can add, anything else, like what sources I should refer. Just like you shared yesterday only, that article was really good. I got an idea how to write. So those kind of essays. And apart from this, like what exactly mistakes I'm doing. So in essay, I need that thing particularly. And for ethics too, like answer writing, how can I improve my writing skills in ethics?
Sir, for some people, there is an issue with the philosophical essays. So everyone writes philosophical essay in a different way. So, sir, one thing that I will request from your side for the whole community, that you can just take some topics from the PYQs, and like you have already taken the master class, but once again with the closed group, so we can have this communication, like two-way communication in that. And so that deconstruction of topics that you have mentioned in your book as well, those things, I think that it will be a start off. Then your guidance in the review will help. But deconstruction is something that you can teach, like if it is possible.
Also, it's kind of confidence with which we approach the essay. Matlab, last time my score was exactly 12 marks less than the cutoff. I missed mains by 12 marks, and my essay score was 87. So because I messed up an interpretation of my first essay, like or ships cannot leave the dock.
Ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ship is for. Right?
That's supposedly a philosophical essay, but then I don't know, it was a bad day or something like that, because I was confident about my essay and the writing skills. I have a flair for writing, all of that. But the approach that I took for writing that essay was completely off the tangent, and I could sense that I was being penalized just for that. Because my second essay, it was fine, it went well, and I was sticking to the alleged interpretation of despite writing a difficult one, that when you have two choices.
Give me an exhaustive list of all philosophical type statements. Let there be 100, 200 statements. Forget about essay topics. Statements you think essay topics बना देते हैं वो. Justice, about ethical things, justice, whatever. I will give you the crux of that, what it means. And not only that, once I start to do it, you will find that there 8 or 12 type of debates around which it will focus. So this particular one, ship is safe in the harbor, that's not what ship is for, is an essay about whether you should be proactive versus enjoying the moment, being in the moment versus being proactive, or how strategic should you be when there is peacetime, for instance. It's a matter of policy. That policy could be an individual's policy, it could also be the policy of a state or a nation, or a company for that matter. If you were able to hit the nail on the head, yeah, it would have been a nice topic to write on. And I evaluated one essay just yesterday on this topic, and I sent a voice note. What did you write about?
I don't know. So the section there was, one thing was about forest, second was on history, third was on poets, and fourth one was this. So I had an understanding that this was from mainly a GS section. So I kind of went off tangent and wrote about how the world has developed by being uncomfortable, exploring, navigation. So like how world has become a globalized village today. So like it was a complete off tangent essay that I'd written, and I feel that was why I was penalized.
Potentially, that was a difficult essay to write on, I feel, because in order to address it properly, you would have to address the whole policy of being proactive versus being latent. All sorts of different contexts. Like I said, organization, nation. What is the phrase?
Ships are safe in the harbor or something.
No. There are, in culture, there is a time when coming of age rituals, exploration, curiosity, coloring outside the lines. You could have, one can talk about nuclear deterrence. That is no first use whether that is justified. If you are so inclined and if this stuff makes sense, then you can also talk about game theory and prisoner's dilemma, about what one should do when you're locked in this type of zero-sum game with anyone. And if there is peacetime, should you preempt an attack from that person? They may or may not attack, even though they may or may not, even though there's peacetime now, or should you enjoy the little things in life at that moment in time? How do you balance the need to relax and the need to enjoy and be in the moment versus the need to survive and be proactive and be prepared? How does a nation do that? How does a company do that? How does an individual do that? How does a child do that? How do old people do that? How do females do that in a situation where they're not really allowed to venture out as much? They have certain disadvantages. That's it. All of these dimensions, you could have played around with. So, what I did right now, just now, is what I'd like to do with a number of these essays so that you're not surprised by any of them. Yes, Princey, Tushar, whoever.
Okay, so I wanted to say that since you have mentioned like in this essay, I wrote the same essay on the examination, and I also I mentioned the quite few of them, like how a child should go out of the home to get his livelihood, if whether he should be in a safe harbor, he will not be able to grow. For example, the nuclear deterrence, I have written that point. I've even started from the Noah Ark, whether it had not been constructed, the Noah Ark, so humanity would not have survived, and all this point. What I felt was that my essays lack structure. I have good points, I have good further points. We all actually have good points because we have been studying for like past 3 years, 4 years. But what we actually like competence and structure, so that the essay feels a good, pleasant to read, because then only will be marked. Because I don't feel now after
this component of writing, the way it is written, is a completely different. Yes, we have the points, but how well is it being communicated? How clearly?
Exactly. So for that, sir, I want as Casey said that she does not give lectures, but I think whether if you can just summarize it all the process within a crash 1 hour or 2 hour session, and then if we can get together for a brainstorming session once, and then if you can teach us how to structure them properly, from like whether we can try it first and then we sort it down and we structure it, and then we can improve the competence of the language.
Yeah. So one again,
because
there
now
are a
what
number
I feel
of things.
That the essays are rewarded basically on English competence more rather than the novel ideas you are mentioning. I think it's more about the competence of language.
Competence of language is definitely one thing. If language is not good, then they will not appreciate it. So again, what you are saying is को unpack करना पड़ेगा. इसमें 3-4 चीजें हैं. एक, how it is written. One. So I mentioned here in the chat WIP, principle for better writing, WIP. This is a principle that you can use when you structure paragraphs and sentences. Our first language is not English. I don't think anybody's first language is English. We have to first think in our mother tongue, then we translate it. WIP is what's your point? You use the WIP, so to speak, to WIP. You WIP yourself rationally to find out what are you saying. क्या कहना चाहते हो आप उस पॉइंट में? आपने बोला न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस, क्या पॉइंट क्या? न्यूक्लियर डेटरेंस तो एक रीजन है, एक एग्जांपल है, एक पॉइंट मेक करने का. पॉइंट क्या था?
So point what I mentioned was that we create nuclear weapons, but it's a safe in harbor. They are not meant to go out and explore. Because मतलब मेरे जो ऐसे के जो कुछ measures थे, कुछ fundamentals, I was like exploring कि कुछ चीजें we have to go and achieve it. But whether they are something that are safe in harbor only, they should not be meant to go further. They should not be used. They should not leave the harbor. At that point, I use nuclear weapons for that.
The point is well made and well taken. The one thing which I don't yet know is how you wrote it.
What exactly? So that's my also concern.
Simple है. Suppose you use the WIP principle. WIP is saying there's घूम फिर के बात यह आती है. Nuclear deterrence is an example of why some things are better off not going out and being in the harbor.
Yeah.
An example is nuclear deterrence. So, if बहुत simple a statement, a sentence, we can sum it up. Nuclear deterrence is an example of why some things should never leave the harbor. Full stop. Simple. वही जो thought था exactly वही लिख दिया आपने. एक simple language. हाँ ठीक है, हम एक लंबा चौड़ा वो लिखे, एक line लिखी हमने. But did we paraphrase that into a short simple sentence? That is just one technique I mentioned. Just an example. There could be multiple ways of writing it. some things are better off in the harbor, such as nuclear weapons. A point well made as the horrific outcomes of the Hiroshima Nagasaki blah blah blah. बस simple. ये एक paraphrasing होगी इसकी. What's your point? Usually, so you have made the point. ये हो गया एक चीज. You made the point in nice, simple language. ये हुई दूसरी चीज. How do the points interconnect across the essay? That's a third thing. It's a completely different thing going on. That thing is what we call as the narrative or the structure. This is what we call structure is slightly misleading narrative. Narrative के लिए there is a technique which I use. It is called begins. BGINS. The narrative is this. When you, after the introduction, when you write the body, you talk about bad things first. Bad is negative, pessimistic stuff. Negative, pessimistic stuff in this context would be why ships should not go out. For example, एक कोई भी site पकड़ लो आपको, mostly negative या pessimistic चीज़. We should not go out. We should not venture necessarily. Nuclear deterrence is an example. ज़्यादा exploration से problem होती है. Every dead body on the Mount Everest was once a highly motivated person. For instance, इस type की चीजें आपने लिख दी. Then you talk about the good things. What happens when you do venture out? It is based on the discoveries and the risks being taken by others that we now benefit from. Not only technology, but the whole civilized world is built on the shoulders of risk takers and people who did venture out. And yes, some of them paid the price for it. But that is the nature of the human being. We are curious creatures. The reason that we were able to evolve and actually have dominion over other species was because we are able to take the risk. And the only weapon we have in our arsenal to survive this complexity, because we don't have claws or fangs, is basically that we are curious and smart. So yes, we should venture out, but we should use our intelligence to mitigate our risks as much as possible. And that is something which intelligence can do, which is exactly what insurance does. That's what insurance is. This narrative is bad things, good things, Indian things, and should things. It's a very simple narrative. Start with negativity, lead to positivity, talk about solutions, bring it to a synergistic conclusion, but end positively. That's it. I mean, this is a very generic template. It will not fit everywhere, but for most cases, the way proceeds. See, you are not writing a horror story. You cannot write bad ending, right? You cannot end very cynically or pessimistically. Likhna to अच्छा ही पड़ेगा end में. This is one example. All of these things, when they come together, form a good piece of writing. Right now, I am just nitpicking various things and telling you, but ultimately, all of this has to come together, and ultimately, good writing is achieved. And this has noticed that it has got nothing to do with quotations or anecdotes. It's just those are just embellishments. May help you make your point better, may not, may make you look like you're trying too hard. Sometimes they fit, but most of the times I noticed that these things, especially things such as these quotes, etc., people who are very good writers are able to pull them off. Everybody else ends up looking like and makes them look like an average writer most of the times. These are the things we talk about. But इसके लिए एक क्लास से काम नहीं चलेगा. I'll have to take multiple sessions. This is fairly sophisticated stuff. ये English literature में, creative writing में, courses में 4 साल लगते हैं लोगों को. It is not easy to do this, but we'll do it.
Sir, ये जो आपका begins structure है narrative, it always reminds me of the way advertisement in India are made. For example, they start always with bad. क्या आपके नमक में वो है, कोई भी प्रोटीन है, कोई भी चीज लगी, क्या आपकी वो खाने में वो चीज है, नहीं है, then B for bad things, then G for good things. They will tell you हमारे प्रोडक्ट में वो चीज है जो आपके वहाँ पे. Then they will tell Indian, हमारा प्रोडक्ट बना है Indian, this is Indian thing. Then they will tell you about this is Indian, and this will neglect the negative things. So that's how the narrative, the advertisement follow in India. Is it relatable, sir?
It's all about narrative and storytelling. If you can tell a compelling story, that's a good marketing campaign. That's a good ad. Of course, they use these techniques. I think they're professionals at this. This is what they do.
Yes, sir. So, sir, after going through your book and the session that you take last year, so sir, what I used to do, I used to pull up questions based on this narrative. No, some negative kind of questions that I can ask from the topic, some positive kind of questions that I can pull up from there. And so solution like question ki what should be done, what should an individual do in such a situation. Like I wrote the essay about choice. So sir, that topic I pulled off using to clearly think what happens, like having a choice is a big thing. What happens when you don't have a choice? What good thing happen when you have a choice? And sir, then some examples from different perspectives. And what should we do when we are stuck between these things or something like that? So sir, these like this is a technique that we can use to brainstorm and apply this thing. So it will happen in at least one of the topics, sir. So I'm not saying so there are 8 topics and we have to write on 2. So one topic we can definitely pull off if we are able to master this thing. So one topic will be very safe if we are able to do this continuously. So that is my advice to all.
No,
And
but is this not the system fundamental matter of anything? Ultimately, अगर हमारी choice लेनी है, तो हम simply end तो नहीं कर सकते ना. We can't end our
Yes.
own thoughts or our own philosophies like that. It all starts with an investigation, and often honest investigation of what the state of affairs is, which is what I mean by saying bad things. तो वो correspond करेगा ही, और मुझे लगता है एक से ज़्यादा इसमें करेगा. उसको कैसे लिखना है, टेलर करना है कंटेंट में, that is not easy. और नैरेटिव सुनने में अच्छा लगता है, बट उसको यूज करना आसान नहीं है. तो we will have to practice and figure out. But your writing is sorted. I would not make radical changes in your case. पिछले 2 बार से you're improving, 3 बार से you're getting better marks. This time also it's good, even though relatively speaking people did not get good marks. So relatively speaking you scored much better this time. तो अच्छा ही है, इसमें हम ज़्यादा changes नहीं करेंगे.
Sir, like my issue is similar to what Tushar sir has said. Like, but his issue at the advanced level, I felt like a noob when someone is talking about philosophical essays and all. Like, I have gone through your lectures and I have this sort of structure. But when it comes to brainstorming,
Content
yes sir,
the fundamental content ही नहीं है.
yes sir. Like I have example. That is my only strength. I can get examples. Yes, sir.
एग्जांपल नहीं, मतलब उसके पीछे एक कहानी होती है. You need to know
Yes.
क्या बोल रहा है ये, what it is.
Yes.
इसका अल्टीमेट एनालिसिस है क्या. That is not arbitrary. कुछ होता है, something particular. So have you gone through steppy technique?
Yes, sir. But that only, like in that case only, I can get all sort of examples. I sum it up and फिर like okay इसको कैसे structure करना है, किसके साथ कौन सा better जाएगा. Yes.
This is, for instance, this is steppy technique is spiritual, temporal, ethical, philosophical, psychological, economic. These are dimensions. All essay topics will come from either one of these or some overlap between. So when I talk of, say, psychological dimension, all sorts of things come into this. You know, the last year there was this essay question said something about self-perception. Our perception of self is a perception of me, your perception of me is a reflection on you. Some sort of stuff like that, which I know is talking about how art is in the eye of the beholder, and how the way I look at you actually is a reflection of how I really am, and how I think about myself. That is psychology. Another associated topic in psychology is what is intelligence. Suppose as a topic comes, what is creativity? That is psychology. What is growth mindset? What is emotional intelligence? All that embedded. This psychological dimension can have at least 20 different topics which can be asked. Intelligence, personality, self-reflection, emotional intelligence. You know, there's a list. वो list है वो content. You know, हर एक चीज, every item on that list you should have some knowledge about. If you are preparing for this stuff, right? Again, a tall order, multiple classes are required. Steppy technique, I have given enough content to write something or the other. But in order to dwell deeper, you have to do a lot of extra reading. ताकि सारे पता हो. अब temporal, they asked a question which was a confluence, an intersection of the temporal dimension and the spiritual dimension. When they asked that history is a series of victory of the romantic man over the scientific man. So temporal dimension तो है ही, because you have to give a historical point of view, and there is spirituality involved in that. Spirituality, I mean that whole conflict between religion and spirituality, or logic and emotion. जो भी बोल लो उसको, that debate is there and set in a historical perspective. So you have to talk about early man and his myth of creation. You have to talk about the Renaissance and the Copernican revolution and how science developed. and how various ideas which people held, cherished ideas that we are at the center of the world, that the earth is at the center of the universe, they were demolished. And then we had the notion that we are the most important creatures, demolished by biology. Then we had the notion that we must be the earth is particularly special and it has life. It is being demolished slowly. Now, constantly there is a demolition of any romantic idea which is centered around humans in science. So that whole thing has to be, that is hardcore content. I got that content from reading a dozen books. No one is supposed to have this content just for the sake of it. You have to acquire it. Same for the philosophical dimensions. There is a whole world of content for it. Economics dimensions. So this, again, the essay topic they asked, best example of economic excellence is forest. That is a topic about environment, and it also deals with economic efficiency of forests and how, the whole thing is recycling, and the whole thing is basically self-sustaining, and there is no wastage of space. Even the surface area of the leaves is optimized. Nature does not have unnecessary vestiges or wastage, and how even the lowest and the highest members of the ecosystem are actually self-sustaining between themselves. What I can do is, when we have that list, to make you go through each of it and give you like a crash course. That I can do. Then I will give you some techniques, etc. You have to figure that out and use those techniques and spend a lot of time writing, spend a lot of time reading. I will be sharing reading material. Yesterday you read something. Today I'll share something else. So you'll have to be doing both if you want to get very good at this.
Sir, I'll take it as a commitment that I'll give it a summary so that this is my commitment. Whatever you give as in content, I'll give it a summary in my form so that I'll be aligning all these things. Maybe.
Yes. And by giving a summary, the reason I asked for it is because not only are you consuming the content, you are having to churn the content in your head, make sense of it, and then you are using your language muscles to write. That is a mental workout. The type of workout you need to get better at this essay writing stuff. This varies from subject to subject. It is completely different in ethics. Type of mental workout you need is different, and it is different for GS. But for essay writing, it is particularly different. So yes, we will do as much as is humanly possible. We'll do. So for now, I think we have a lot of clarity about what we need to focus on. We'll have more such sessions. I will figure out the modalities of this other stuff about how to focus, consistency, discipline, goal setting. I already know that you require some lessons and basically practice in reading and writing. For essay, you not only need the content, you need to be able to write content, good content, on the spot. That is a lot of work for me for now. I'll try to do this within these first 10-15 days which we have right now. Focus on essay. So my suggestion is going to be to align your timetables accordingly and give the next 15 days actually to essay writing. You do a lot of reading, and all the reading is pleasurable in this segment. All the reading will be new, all the reading will be interesting. You'll be reading a lot. And you're reading and you're writing, you're reading and you're writing for the next 10-15 days. And then stop. And then you write only later when the time comes. Actually, you must actually not do anything else. Maybe something on the side, but you'll need to have one priority at a time. And the next 15 days, that we will see whether we have to give it a break and you can focus on your optional, or we should be focusing on ethics. All this stuff about essay, all of this content is on my fingertips. For ethics, I have to do a lot of reading myself, because in some areas it gets specialized. So last time I taught this course on ethics, I read a lot of books, number of books, and I quoted from a number of books. And that was the only way I was able to explain Gandhi's philosophy. I read the book, or at least sections of his book. The only way I could explain Machiavelli's philosophy and Machiavelli's ideas, ethics, was I read the book and I explained why it has that reputation that it has. So it's a lot of work, but we can do it. So shall we call it a day for now? And we'll meet soon. And I'll try to figure out what we are doing next. and I'll update you guys. In the meantime, we'll continue our reading and writing. I'll share reading content, you write essays, and you send them.
Sir, I would like to say one thing that given the pattern of essays that are coming, more and more philosophical essays will come. So ethics, I guess, will help a lot. Should I complete that first or focus on my optional? Because I haven't read anything about ethics.
Yeah, so in some essays will are straight out of ethics directly. For instance, one essay they asked a couple of years ago, it is better to give a dole than give a penny or something. That's a purely ethical essay. If they ask something about ethics, if they ask something about justice, that will fall in that ethical ambit. And this TEPI technique I'm saying, the last E is ethics, ethical dimension. So if your ethics is completely unprepared, then you should be doing ethics.
So because we also read about philosophers in ethics, so that also helps in essay section.
Not too much.
Okay.
I mean, you'll know a few names and it'll make you feel like you know a few names, but they won't come to your rescue really. They'll force you to think independently. You might be able to fit some of the other philosophers somewhere or the other, but it will have to be self-generated good content in that essay that they want.
So my problem with essay is like deconstructing the philosophical essays and then brainstorming on it. So if that is the first session that you're going to take, it will be really helpful.
Yeah, deconstructing it is very easy, and at your level of intelligence, it is a cakewalk. The tricky part is that some essays are metaphorical. Like Sharwani was saying, that essay about the ship and the harbor, that was a metaphor. The ship and the sea and the harbor were metaphors. If you understand the metaphor, you can play around with it, you can deconstruct easily. But, it's circular, the problem is circular. In order to deconstruct it, you need to know the content a little bit. In order to know only when you know the content, you can deconstruct it and so on. Some words do not require deconstruction. For example, capitalism cannot bring inclusive growth. Does not require deconstruction. We know what these words mean. Forest is the best example of economic excellence. Easy deconstruction. Essay like that one with the ship and the harbor, tricky deconstruction. So we will discuss these. That basically in the list of topics to be done now. I'll have to give you the content only, then you can deconstruct it. But there are techniques. Interesting technique I discussed in the book and in the course that I teach is decision matrix. It helps you decide which essays not to pick. So had Sharwani used that, she would not have picked that book essay on. She would have picked another essay. We should also not focus on areas which are very weak with respect to essays, because there will be a range of essays and types. There will be different types of essays. If you realize that you do not have enough content for this philosophical essay type thing, and that content will not be easy to generate, not be easy to consume, you should not stress on it, because there will be other options in that list to pick from. So what will be common is how you write about it, that is common. Narrative, how you build is common. Content richness is common. But we should not expect to be able to understand all the metaphors. Not possible. Some, if we don't understand, we should be trained enough, disciplined enough to not tamper with them. That too we will discuss. So we'll disperse, call it a day, and I will figure out how I will give you the structure that is required, and I will get back to you. We will talk soon, hopefully. On the weekend we'll meet. In the meantime, carry on. I'll give you reading, writing, do what you're doing, but start reading and start writing aggressively.
Yes, sir. For the next 15 days, then I'll be focusing on essay only, and then after that, I can focus on ethics part because
Yes, read good content in this time. It's the only time when you don't have enough pressure. You can actually involve yourself, engage with content, and with less anxiety. You cannot do this after 1 month. The ticking deadline will cause you to suffocate. Deep focus will become impossible. You'll only be doing superficial things for the most part. You'll only be regurgitating what you've learned in test series, etc., getting feedback. You will not do deep thinking at that time. So this is the time to do that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was helpful, and we'll continue what we're doing here.